Members, that brings us to the last item on our agenda, agenda item number 11. This is a discussion item requesting the status of the Kalailoa Parklands transfer to the City and County of Honolulu. And for this discussion item, it was brought forward by Councilmember Kobayashi, but we have Director Nakota here from the Department of Parks and Recreation. Deputy Director Ishikawa, thank you.
Aloha Chair and committee members, Jean Ishikawa, Deputy Director for the Department of Parks and Recreation. Just a brief update on the Kalailoa properties, Barbers Point properties. I did have a conversation with the Navy BRAC yesterday and the Navy Base Realignment and Closure Program staff, and they are also still waiting as we are waiting. Their last correspondence with the Advisory Council on Historic Preservation and the State SHPD office was a letter that they sent dated April 29th. So the BRAC has not received a response to that yet. And so after our conversation yesterday, they are going to do a follow-up to the two agencies. The Advisory Council on Historic Preservation is based in Washington, D.C., and the local SHPD to follow up. In their April 29th letter, they did state that they support the transfer of properties, that the Navy BRAC believes that they have fulfilled all procedural requirements that was necessary to fulfill Section 106 of the Federal Transfer of Properties. And so they did send that letter of support, and they will be following up with a second letter asking for a confirmation. We also did have a brief conversation with the Department of Interior on Monday, and they also are waiting for correspondence. So there is a lot of follow-up that still needs to be done.
Thank you, Deputy Director. Any questions, members? I had a quick question. This is a follow-up in regards to Resolution 18-265, which was introduced by Councilmember Kobayashi and Councilmember Pine. And within the language of that resolution, it was the acquisition and transfer of these lands for the development of a raceway park. Can you provide the details of the department's position on the development of the raceway park?
As far as the Kalailoa properties that we will be getting, we are only in our feasibility study phase right now, so we are not looking at anything beyond that at this point. We want to figure out or find out, what is on the properties and how we can move forward. After that, when we do enter the master planning process, we will have community meetings, and it'll be many community meetings because it's a lot of area. So that, there's going to be a lot of dialogue on these properties because it's 400 acres. So we need to engage a lot with the council, with the community, because there are a lot of ideas floating out there. So we're going to wait until that time comes.
Thank you, Deputy Director. Fire. Seeing none, is there anyone else wishing to testify on this matter? Please come forward and state your name for the record.
Lee Cobian. I'm here in support of Public Motorsports Park. And thank you, council members. Now, I submitted my testimony. I stand by my testimony. And a couple of things I want to acknowledge. The application to that property in 1999, this application that the city submitted, they acknowledged car racing as one of the suitable other recreational activities. Because people were talking about, there's no way you can race there. Well, they've been racing there. Navy was racing there, and they were racing after, in 1999, even with the city applied for it, and it's in the application. Another thing what I wanted to also mention is, because people have talked about having a fitness sports complex there. Well, in my testimony, in May of 2011, the city sent out a memo saying that this is exactly what it says. The department does not consider the development of a sports training facility described in the original application as being economically feasible. And so that's in the application. Now, in my testimony, I want to also give your attention to, there's a website, there's a link to a neighborhood board site visit that we went with the neighborhood board at the property. There was grave concerns about noise, that the homes were right across the street, that the shopping center was across the street. We actually went down there, and the neighborhood board realized, well, where's the homes? Where's the shopping center? I said, 1 mile over there, 2 miles over there. And they're like, well, what's the concern? You're right in front of an airport. And I'm like, well, all those concerns were fabricated by people who are just opposing the sport. And all that is in my testimony. Also, regarding the preservation area for the World War II section of it, our proposed area is not in that boundary. And we have an affidavit from a historian and executive director, Brad Hayes of the Barbers Point Naval Air Museum. And he's wrote a book on images of aviation on that specific spot. And I conclude. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your testimony. Members, any questions? Again, thank you all for coming out this afternoon and for sticking through and coming back after recess. I know it was a very long day for you folks. I'm looking forward to further updates from the Deputy Director and the Parks Department to see how we can finally have some movement on this issue that many of you have been waiting over a decade for. So I'm very hopeful and look forward to more discussions on this matter. Again, thank you for coming back after recess, and we'll stay in touch with regard to this issue. And with that, no further business. This meeting is adjourned. Thank you.